So one of the principal messages of the book is that the relationship between the two countries has actually never been normal. And so in that sense, to talk about normalization, we need to have that historical context in mind. And the implications of that context is that the improvement of relations between the two governments is something that is multifaceted, complex, and it's going to take a long time. And what we try to do in the book is to highlight some of the keys to understanding where the greatest challenges are, but also where some of the opportunities are, and to exploring what factors are likely to drive the trajectories of change in the relationship between Cuba and the United States.
Okay, great. So we're just going to get into a couple questions about the book to kind of entice readers to read it, and then we look forward to discussing it with you more on October 20th over some snacks and light refreshments in SIS 348. So people can join us online on Goodreads on our discussion board.
Excellent.
Or they can also join us in person. So
Excellent.
First off, what do you hope readers, especially School of International Service alumni who might be working in international policy, will take away from this book?
Well, I think one thing they should take away from this book is that there are substantial potential benefits to an improvement in relations between the two governments. And those benefits are both to the governments themselves, but also to both Cuban society and American society. And we try to specify beyond generalities what some of those benefits might be. At the same time, we want to highlight the degree to which the relevance of this change is very different for Cuba than it is for the United States. At the end of the day, the quality of relations with Cuba is not determinant of the future of the American political and economic system. That is not the case with Cuba. Cuba faces profound challenges of economic development and of governance and in the present international environment. And at this juncture in Cuba's own history, an improvement of relations with the United States really is of vital importance. And so we hope that through this book, readers will better understand the ways in which it is important for Cuba, and also the ways in which it's crucial for Cuba, and also the ways in which it does matter for the United States. One of the ways it matters has to do with the United States' relations with Latin America as a whole. And a point that we make in this volume is that the estrangement between the United States and Cuba, and specifically the United States policy of isolating Cuba and of trying to destroy its political and economic system, was a policy that carried with it very high costs in terms of the quality of American relations with countries throughout Latin America. And we believe that by removing this irritant, the United States government took important steps forward to enhancing the prospects for cooperation with governments throughout much of the hemisphere. And that is a very important implication of the sea change in policy that was announced in December of 2014.
Okay. You're also an internationally recognized specialist on Latin America, not only Cuba. In what ways do you see that U.S. policy towards Cuba and towards other countries in Latin America is similar and different?
Well, I think one of the reasons that the American policy regarding Cuba was such an irritant was that it reminded Latin American countries of ways in which historically the United States had behaved imperially with regard to the region. And it was widely commented, and President Obama put it in these terms as well, that by ending the American policy toward Cuba, what he was doing was putting to rest the kind of last conflict of the Cold War in the Western Hemisphere. And I think that from the perspective of many governments in Latin America, the decision by the United States, the action of the United States to move beyond its Cold War approach to the region was both welcomed, considered overdue, but again removes a reminder of the ways in which Latin America suffered by its treatment as an arena for waging the Cold War. And much of Latin America, not all of Latin America, I think sensed that the United States had moved beyond that in its bilateral relations, certainly with major countries in the region, but it had not done so with regard to Cuba. And again, I think in that sense, this move is entirely positive. The additional ways in which the relationship is similar, and this moves beyond questions of government-to-government relations. There are significant parts of Latin America for which the performance of the U.S. economy and its relationships with the U.S. economy are essential for their economic performance. Similarly, there are important parts of Latin America where the circumstances of people of Latin American descent living in the United States are of vital importance, not only because of the impact that they have on the quality of life of people, of Latinos living in the United States, but also because of the contributions of that population abroad to economic and political development in their countries of origin. And in that sense, Cuba shares patterns of interaction with the United States that you could also see if you were thinking about Mexico, if you were thinking about Central America, about neighboring countries in the Caribbean, such as the Dominican Republic, right? And I think in that sense, what we're going to see increasingly is Cuba's entering the mainstream of the logics of U.S. relations with the Greater Caribbean as a whole. And by the Greater Caribbean, I include Central America, where you have countries that also have substantial portions of their population living in the United States.
So we covered that you're the director for the Center for Latin American and Latino Studies, the CLALS, and this fall they are partnering with the School of International Service for the launch of the Robert A. Pastor North American Research Initiative. Can you give us a little more details on that project?
Yeah, well, many of the alumni who will be part of this this discussion will be aware of the work of the late SIS Professor Robert Pastor. And much of Bob's work, particularly during the last years of his life, was focused on the prospects for North American integration, that is to say, for a deeper integration of Mexico, the United States, and Canada. And he was a firm believer in the imperative for greater integration, and he was somebody who lamented the persistence of obstacles and resistance to that integration. And so in that context, and given the fact that Bob had trained at AU some of the leading next generation of scholars thinking about North American relations and thinking about U.S. relations with Mexico, we thought that it would be opportune for the center to partner with the School of International Service to try to catalyze the emergence of a network of scholars from all three countries and beyond who would try to articulate the next generation of research on the character of relations in the region and the obstacles and impediments as well as the benefits to processes of greater integration during the years ahead. And so we are going to begin convening at the end of October a working group comprised of people who we think are the leading new voices in the study of North America. We're going to convene them at AU, and over a period of 3 or 4 years, we're going to issue a series of collaborative publications and convene a variety of public events in all three countries designed to highlight how state-of-the-art scholarship is illuminating the prospects of change in the trilateral relationship, both at this juncture and in the short and medium-term futures. And in so doing, what we want to do, and what I believe we will do, is to set an example for the sort of contribution that AU can make, and specifically that SIS and this center can make, to highlighting the ways in which first-rate scholarship, state-of-the-art research, can address and inform debates that engage the general public and that engage decision makers both in governments and in non-governmental settings. And they can inform those understandings and debates in areas that are enormously important to the quality of life of people in the United States and beyond. And we see a central role of American University as being to generate the knowledge that society needs in order to make decisions about matters of public concern. And we think that we're well situated to bring together some of the best minds and to create spaces for networks of scholars to interact with people outside of academia. So that's what we're going to try to do. We're very excited about this prospect. I'm very pleased that the center will be carrying this out jointly with SIS. The center is the only campus-wide center on the AU campus, and we are very much a research-driven operation. And so our activities typically are carried out jointly with schools and colleges, including SIS. And so this is an area where the mission of the school and the center converge in ways that I think are going to make it possible for us to make a really significant contribution, both to scholarship and to public debate.
Very nice. So is there anything else you'd like to tell the readers as they start to get into the book?
I think the main thing that I would say about this book is that we prepared it very much with the idea, first, that we wanted it to come out roughly a year after the December 2014 announcement. It ended up coming out 16 months later. But we thought that it would be important to quickly circulate a well-informed collection of reflections on what the implications of this process were likely to be, and highlighting that the process was going to be protracted. So we would both, on the one hand, be able to take stock of how things were getting off the ground, and in that sense, be better positioned to anticipate what some of the biggest challenges and what some of the biggest achievements were likely to be in the short and medium-term future. And given that that was our agenda, we also wanted these chapters to be more accessible than would be the case had they been published in conventional scholarly journals. And so, for the most part, the chapters are around 5,000 words in length rather than the typical article length of 8,000. We took great pains to make sure they were free of jargon and that they're well written. And we devoted a good deal of effort to ensuring a productive integration across different parts of the book, and to avoiding the kinds of duplication that all too often one finds in this sort of collaborative edited volume. And so we hope that readers will agree that it ends up being a well-crafted and accessible collection. I think that for people who are contemplating, for example, going to Cuba, or who are involved directly or indirectly in trying to make the relationship between the two countries more productive, we think that the book will provide a useful overview to helping to understand the complexities of Cuba, of the Cuba-US relationship, and also some of the possibilities that stronger bilateral ties will create for both societies.
Okay. I look forward to reading it and discussing it with you on October 20th.
I look forward to the discussion as well.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.